And welcome back, guys, to Ladder League Week 4 recap. It's been a while since I've done a recap video, to be honest. We had that week break and excited to get another one going. This one, thank goodness, is going to be, well, hopefully going to be a lot shorter than the other ones. I'm in a little bit of a time crunch anyway, so it shouldn't be more than 20 minutes. And there's a lot less that happened this week, so, or just because less matches. There was a lot that happened within the matches, though. So let me start out with our week 4 recaps on our bottom rung between Charizite, Twice Light, and Phantom. If I can remember correctly, this was the first race of the week, and kind of speaking on fandom, just a really bad time to have such kind of just a disastrous run. Obviously, we saw the week before him getting a 234.52, which even if he were to replicate that PB run he had a week ago, it wouldn't be enough. So maybe a bit of relief on his part that, like, at least even though I had the really bad run, I probably wasn't going up anyways. But, it always sucks just to have a bad run, especially in a situation where, you need to keep going. I did not create the feature yet for the placings on the rungs, which I mentioned last week, like a first through 26th kind of about the overall standings of where everyone finishes. But I didn't create that yet. But Phantom definitely finishing over his initial seeding of 21 by a long shot. Great tournament from him. He goes out here, but you can't be disappointed. And the same goes with Twice Light, as it's a little bit of a different sort of elimination for Twice Light because he's exceeded his seed for sure, so very well done from him. But he improved his PB so much from the start of the tournament. Like, it was such a drastic increase in P or decrease in PB. It was like a 38 to a 32. Um, and honestly, he goes out on a pretty good run too. This run is not only close to his PB, but he was behind quite a bit going into the late game here. Charizard had quite the situation on DB3 that I don't know how many times, but it was over a minute of missing on DM or DB3, which let Twice Light sneak into just like a possibility of coming back. It wasn't close enough to make up the gap, but Charizard ended with a 232.34, and Twice Light ending with a 233.08 is kind of a bang to go out on for Twice Light. And Charizard looking like, he's going to be a tough guy to compete with in the bottom rung. If he's getting times like a 232, as you can see, better than Garrison, Revilo, and Jablakey above him, better than Blazer and Flup as well. So yeah, that was a good race. But Charizard proving finally, I think it was finally time because Charizard had a shaky tournament. Finally proving his like potential coming true a bit here in the race. He's still in the bottom rung. He's gonna have a situation next week that we'll go over in a minute because I'm excited to talk about next week. But let's continue talking about the matches from this week. And this one, this takes the place of the race of the week, the Bozo race of the week. It was the I almost put it as the best race I've ever seen in TCS history. TCS any percent history. I don't know. I don't know how many races there've been for other categories, but this one was incredible. I got the honor of commentating this one with Chess, and holy cow! I'm not gonna be able to go all over everything, but it was crazy from the start. Uh, Jablakey like just didn't even go for pod fraud as a note, which is very, very crazy. He's kind of the favorite going into this just because his PB is significantly better than Garrison Revelo. He's put up good times this tournament. So it was kind of like Jablakey's kind of sweep this match sort of situation. But then he doesn't go for power fraud. Interesting. He's about even with Revelo through the first bit of the run, which is, interesting, but not too concerning. Garrison, of course, is ahead with his Xbox head start. But Garrison was having a really, really good run up until episode 4, really. So Garrison, he had like the outright lead, even though he had the head start. We knew he was in the lead up through 4. Jablakey and Revelo both struggling. And then Revelo has like, I know, an absolute disaster on Princess. Loses probably a minute at least to Jablakey at that point in time. Multiple minutes behind Garrison. So then he leaves. It's looking like, this is going to be a tough come from behind situation for Revelo, and Garrison still has a pretty big lead. But then after the episode 4 reset, Garrison loses his helmet at the first room of Jabba's and loses over a minute to it probably. And just like that, Jablakey gets the lead. So it's like already kind of a crazy lead change. And at that point, I'm like, all right, well, Jablonski's probably taking this match, right? Because he's the pre-race favorite. He's got the lead now. Usually you don't lose grasp of this at this point, which, to be fair to Jablonski, he didn't really make too much falters until Endor, where his AI did not follow him. He still held the lead after that, barely, and then he had a bit of a destiny mistake, and then Garrison was getting really close again. Um, and then we went to 3, so Jablonski falters a bit towards the end of 6. Revelo still is multiple minutes behind. He was having his own trouble, so it was kind of in my head, I'm like, all right, well, this is kind of Revelo has to make a crazy back half, and they have to make mistakes for this to, shape out differently than just being Jablonski, Garrison, Revelo final order. Um, I'm going over this match such in depth, by the way, just because of how crazy it was. I'm not going to be doing this for the other matches as much. Um, but yeah, going into 3, then Jablonski is an absolute disaster, Grievous, where he like couldn't get more than a 1 cycle. Um, I don't think there was too much to say about Garrison and Revelo's threes. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think there was anything too eventful until we got to episode 5, where Jablonski had to take the Walk of Shame, which in Echo Base, which was not good. It was a rough Falcon flight because I didn't mention Jablonski missed IT, so he has to go into Falcon flight and make a decision. He actually goes for the out of bounds, eventually gets it, but it's not enough to really save time with it. And at that point, it was like, all right, we knew Garrison was gonna get ahead, but it was like, is Revelo gonna get ahead? And Revelo didn't get ahead, so it was like kind of like, all right, well, Jablonski has saved his run, kind of. And then it looked really because Garrison has a disastrous Dagobah, and then Jablonski takes the lead. And it wasn't until even Jablonski gets the DB3, and I'm saying like, yep, Jablonski is, as long as he hits DB3, he's got this in his control. And he hit it after a while, but it wasn't until Garrison passes him RTA. But remember, there's a low difference between Garrison, so essentially the situation going to Bestman in this race was Jablonski leading by a minute over Revelo, and Jablonski leading by 30 seconds over Garrison. So it's looking, like this is going to be like a Jablonski Garrison Revelo finish. Maybe there's some changing. 30 seconds is possible in Bestman, but then Jablonski goes for GTF out of nowhere, which, by the way, don't want to talk about GTF too much, but that is now being done in a lot of people's runs. And he misses the trigger on the way back, but he doesn't know this. We thought in chat that he might have missed it. And then he literally gets the end platform piece. Garrison is missing door clip a lot in this time, and Revelo actually passes him. Probably he saves like a full minute to Garrison on door clip, and Revelo passes Garrison. Jablonski gets bridge skip pretty quick, or I think it was first try, and then the Falcon was not deloaded properly. The trigger to end the level is not there, and he panics and does about the worst thing you could possibly do, is drop out R2 because you need R2 in there, and essentially soft locks himself. Whether that's actually a soft lock or not, I don't know the exact whether that is or not, but he essentially soft locks himself to the point where it's over. He could have maybe saved it after the not hitting the trigger. He could have saved himself, maybe. I'm not sure, but so he's just sitting there. He literally goes from winning the race to completely lost. Crazy ending. Well, Garrison Revelo are neck and neck RTA. Revelo actually was a bit ahead because LRT differences in Xbox and PC and whatnot, and there was a bit of a head start at the end of the race. So Revelo, who comes in a minute behind the leader and 30 seconds behind second place into the last level, wins the race. I mean, sorry I took so much time to talk about this race compared to anything else on this list, but that was honestly the greatest race I've ever seen. Literally, the results flipped from the beginning of Bespin to the end of Bespin on the placings. So, just to give a quick debriefing about the ripple effects of this, Garrison and Revelo move up to rung 3 next week. And Jablonski, who's the 8 seed, moves down to the bottom rung, which for Flup and Charizard, that is an absolute disaster. You don't want to have to go up against such a strong opponent like Jablonski in the bottom rung, because it's winner take all in the bottom rung. So that's going to be quite a key matchup to look at next week. We'll get to that. But yeah, Revelo and Garrison play Harass Me, which is a tough matchup, but one of them is guaranteed, at least, I mean, could be both, guaranteed to make it up into rung 2 next week, which is, crazy to think because their seeds 15, 14, 13, that's outperforming their seeds, I think. I have to double check that, but that's definitely outperforming their seeds, because then they're guaranteed, at least one of them is guaranteed at worst bottom rung in week 7, which is already like week 7 is there's only 6 people left in the ladder, and that's crazy. Anyways, moving on. Uh, Laser to hamster flop. Um, yeah, this one was crazy because it just continues the pod fraud disasters. Because flop and laser with absolute pod fraud just disasters, and laser picked a really good time to have an absolute disaster run in this tournament because it comes when flop has an even worse disaster in the tournament. Um, yeah, this is definitely not like for laser and flop, not times they're proud of. Flop with a 238, like there was obviously some major time losses throughout the run, but I would be shocked if he got a time that bad again. We've seen his potential, and I know he was also kind of rusty, I think, going into this match, so it's not like super surprising to see a 238 out of him in that scenario, but I would not expect it again next week, especially with the tournament life on the line. And then Laser kind of gets bailed out with a 235 um, at a good time. And to Hamster, he's been grinding or whatever. He's gotten some 226s. 229 is not a bad time at all for Hamster. I'd expect better out of him too. I'm sure he expects better out of himself as well. Yeah, no, not a bad time for Hamster. He does the job essentially. Um, but I'm expecting for him to get a little bit of better times next week. Especially he's gonna have to get better times if he's gonna be wanting to compete for that 8 seed, which he's definitely one of the contenders for. Anyways, moving on to my own match, myself, EJP Man Erasmi. I did this pre-recorded, kind of like Garrison's in week 2 or 3, I believe. I think it was last week. But yeah, pre-recorded my match, and honestly, I had not played since I've had terrible internet issues. I haven't played since Monday, which is almost a week now, and I just kind of warmed up a little bit and just went for it, and it turned out really, really well. Honestly, should have PB'd. There's a couple disasters throughout the run that kind of forced it not to be or caused it not to be, but I cannot be disappointed with this run at all. I knew I could get this sort of run in the tournament. Honestly, I personally think I can get like easily well into the 23s and maybe even a 22 in a tournament situation, just because like my PB is so much worse than where I'm at skill wise, I believe. But I'm not gonna go into that own bias conversation about myself. But yeah, 224.04, finally getting a good tournament time. Uh, of course, it comes in, rung 2 where I was kind of expected to move up anyways, but whatever, I'll take it what I can. Um, and then, yeah, obviously the big storyline of this race was Harasmi's PC crashing. Or it wasn't crashing, it was game wasn't loading, and he needs to restart his PC. He loses about 6 minutes to it, and essentially caused him to lose the race because it was a close race between EJP Man and Harasmi, and then EJP Man would have won either way. So to be fair to EJP Man, he would have won either way, but it affects Harasmi's mindset, of course, going to the back half. So it's really tough to call what would happen without that absolute technical disaster on Harasmi's side, but the match is gonna go down. Me and EJP Man move up no matter what at this point. But aside from that, I'm impressed with Harasmi though. I'm actually like because I got to pre-record this, so I watched the match as it was happening. Harasmi was sticking close to my episode 1 and 2, despite me having like a pretty good episode 1 and 2. Even for like a top level run, he was not far behind. So I was like, this early game from Harasmi is pretty impressive. Even through 4, he was pretty close. It wasn't until late 4, early 6 where he started falling behind. But honestly, I could see the potential in Harasmi there. I can definitely see him getting more and more PBs. He's still like, there's kind of like sometimes people plateau eventually after getting a lot of PBs, but I don't see that plateau happening for Harasmi for a while. I see more PBs in his near future. As for AJP Man, if you take away the early game mishaps, missing ICS, bad pod fraud, yada yada yada, I think he could have had a significantly better time as well. Obviously, we saw his what he can do last week with the 226. So not a great week for EJP Man. Once again, chose a good time to have a bad run, but he's definitely going to have better in the next upcoming weeks. And then finally, Jared, Evan, and We Super. I did not have the luxury of watching this match, but I do know what sort of happened. Um, Justin kind of had a pod fraud incident again. Um, Second time this tournament, but I would assume he'd start taking a little bit more safer. He does take a very, very risky sort of line for pod fraud, but that sort of disaster crumpled with a princess disaster. um, it, it it netted out to be a pretty bad time for his case. and not definitely not good enough to beat what Evan and Jared put up in this race. So it does demote Justin. I'm not really too swayed by this sort of result. Like I'm not thinking, oh, Justin's in trouble or anything. No, this is just a fluke once again. He's had a couple fluky times this tournament, but he's proven not only outside the tournament and in the tournament that he can get good times. So really not concerned about the Justin time. He goes down to the second rung, which sucks on his behalf, but he'll be back in the top rung very shortly. Um, and as for Evan, what like best time of the tournament? What a run! Just consistency is key in this game, and he has been showing ever since that first match where he had that Droid Factory soft lock mishap. That he is deserving of being a top seed and a top contender. And just with the 222.53 in a tournament match, which is essentially matching his PB in a tournament match, maybe even better. Yeah, it just proves how good he is right now, and it's really tough to say he is not. It's really tough to say he's not the favorite right now because of Zach not playing. Zach doesn't play. He's not going to be playing until top eight, so it's gonna be tough. Especially since now at or like latest, Zach and Evan cannot meet in the finals, especially as they're like kind of the two favorites right now. They can't even meet in the finals because Evan's the 4 seed, Zach's the 1 seed. So even if they were both to win their matches in the first round, they would have to face each other second round, which is just really really interesting dynamic. Um, that's gonna be more in play when we start talking about top eight. But yeah, I better hurry it up if I want to keep this video a little bit shorter this time. And then as for Jared, not a bad time at all. I'm not like Jared was a lot closer to Evan as well. He probably could have put up a significantly better time without some late game mistakes. Once again, this is a solid Jared performance. Not concerned. He's gonna qualify soon. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about the Jared performance. He's qualifying a lot later than I would have expected, of course, but some flukes here and there, and Jared should be in there soon. I'm not concerned about Jared. All right, now we'll go to the predictions for week five because week five's got some good matches. We're only down to 4 rungs now, which is crazy. It feels like yesterday we had 8. We're already cut the bracket in half or the ladder in half. Starting with Jablaki Flup Charizite, and this is going to be quite the match. Obviously, we've seen the past 2 weeks Jablaki's had some sort of disastrous runs where you know not putting up good times. So but we've also seen Jablaki playing well, so I really don't know what to expect. If we see a Jablaki on his game today, or on his game next week, um, he should take this match, and Flup and Charizite will both go out. But if Jablaki doesn't have as good of a match, we saw how good Charizite can be, we've seen how good Flup can be. One of them could definitely take it if Jablaki's not on his game and not in his tip-top shape. Um, Charizite getting the 232 last week. Flup, I mean, he's coming back, starting to play more. He's 3-0 against Charizite this tournament. So, still a lot riding on Flup's side and Charizite's side, despite being the underdogs here. Predictions on this match, I'm gonna stick with my guns here. By the way, I apparently curse whoever I predict in these videos. I'm sorry if I predict you. But I'm gonna take Jablaki on this one just because he has proven in the past how good he is, and Flup and Charizard aren't quite at that level yet. While I definitely think they have the potential to be on his level at some day, that day is not, or that week is not this week. I think they both go out together, which is kind of fitting because they've been so neck and neck all tournament. Um, it sucks because it looked like without the Jablaki crazy loss, it looked like it would have been like a close race between 3 people, either Garrison or Revy, and these two. But with the surprising Jablaki loss, it's going to be most likely Flup and Charizard going out together here. But we'll see. It's going to be a good race no matter what. And then the next rung, Harass Me, Revelo, Garrison, a rematch of week one's rung 4, rung 5, rung 5. Yeah, rematch of week one's rung 5. This should be a good one. Harass Me, though, obviously has put up a lot better times since then, and has probably I can't even count the fluke that it happened this week, as really it wasn't even his fault. So Harass Me is still very very dangerous. I would be shocked to see him not. I would be shocked to see him lose this match, because Garrison and Revy have put up some good times, but not as good as Harass Me. This is likely to be one of those matches where one person's kind of in the driver's position to win, and then it's going to be a good battle for second place between Revelo and Garrison. And obviously, second place is so important because you don't want to get demoted to the bottom rung. Because now at the bottom rung, it's like win or go home, and you have someone like the 8 siege of Blakey already in the bottom rung, it's like it's not a death sentence going to the bottom rung, but it is near death sentence. So staying above the top rung is so essential nowadays. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna go predictions. Harasmi wins. I'm gonna go Garrison gets second. I just was a little like, the thing is, Revelo won the race, but I was a little unimpressed with the first half that he put together. Of course, he's a little bit rusty. I could see Revelo easily getting second here as well. I'm gonna go Garrison this week. It's kind of become a little rivalry we've seen this tournament as well. That's gone back and forth. I'm gonna say Garrison takes it this week, and Revelo goes down, and Garrison stays up. But I can easily see it flipped. But Harasmi should win this race. Um, Rung two, kind of similar situation to Rung three, where you have Justin, who's just significantly better than the Hamster and Laser. I He should win this race. And then Hamster has proven, like, at least in the past couple weeks, just by playing so much and getting a lot of PBs, that I think Hamster is gonna have a clear edge over Laser here, like a visible edge. Because before in the earlier in the tournament, I think it was pretty even, but I think the Hamster has that little edge right now over Laser. And once again, loser goes to the bottom rung, and the Hamster and Laser are two, like, not I'm gonna I you could call them favorites to get the 8 seed going into the tournament even now, and one of them is gonna probably go to this bottom rung. I mean, Justin's not going to the bottom rung, but imagine that would be crazy if he did. The fact that the ladder is so small that Justin could go to the bottom rung right now is crazy, but that's not gonna happen. But yeah, I'm gonna go Justin wins, DeHamster second, Laser third, just based off of how DeHamster's been playing lately and playing really well. I'm gonna ride the more consistent player. Like, he's not that he's more consistent than Laser, but he's been consistently playing more consistently. Sorry. And then top rung, myself, Jared, and EJP Man. This will be another interesting race. EJP Man should do a lot better than he did last week, but it's definitely like, I don't think it's going to be enough to win this match, for sure, because he needs not only a fluke out of just one or me or Jared, he needs like a fluke out of both of us to win this match, like a complete fluke performance, which could happen, but even our most fluky performances in this week 3 match with Frost, we still like beat Jared still beat EJP Man's PB. So, and I'm assuming that fluke of a match won't happen again. So it would be real. Like, I'm giving EJP Man a very, very small chance, but very unlikely to win this. He could get second if one of us have a fluky, disastrous run, though. That's definitely in the cards. As for myself versus Jared, obviously this week we both put up very, very similar times. Put up similar times in the disastrous race as well. I really don't know where this is going to go, because I would put Jared as the favorite, of course, just because it's PB, and he's put up some really solid times this tournament, and I've only put up one good time this tournament. But I mean, me and him have been pretty inconsistent so far this tournament, that I could see either of us winning this match. Um, I'm gonna go with Jared just on prediction wise, just based on he's been consistently a little bit better than me this tournament. I've been a little too inconsistent, but I could definitely see myself winning this as well. Um, Coming off a 2404 is definitely a good thing to be, get some good morale boost. But I think I see myself second here, and seeing sort of a me, Justin, to Hamster rung 1 week 6 would be kind of a realistic scenario. Um, where I think that's going to be a good battle if that happens for the 6th seed. But yeah, EJP Man going down is not a surprise, but he literally would be expected to jump right back into that top rung for week 7, where that will be a good chance for him to potentially qualify as the 7th seed even. But yeah, that will have to do it for my recap today. I have to get going soon. It ended up being 24 minutes, so still pretty long, still a lot of content. Um, I guess I'll shout out real quick the predictions leader anonymous. Oopsies. Weekly. Actually, I think he's the weekly predictions leader. The overall predictions, I guess there's with top 8 included. Bob Toad is actually our leader, with top 8 predictions, because some people slotted in some Evan 4 seed picks this week. So shout out to Bob Toad actually for being our overall leader so far. Still a lot more to play for, still a lot more in predictions. But yeah, as for the tournament, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. All these results are so important now, and it's just like, look how small the ladder's getting soon. This is going to be exciting. We will see you guys next week. Yeah, peace.